All right, so we're going to continue talking about adding and addition equations with integers and rational numbers. So yesterday we learned that integers are whole numbers. They can be positive or negative. So like 0, -1, 5, those are all integers. Rational numbers include all of the integers, but also any number that can be written as a fraction. So any terminating decimals, an example of a terminating decimal would be like 2.5. There's nothing else after the 5. It ends at 5. Or repeating decimals like 2.33333333. It just keeps going, but we can write that 0.333 as a fraction 1/3. So we're going to look at how to add with rational numbers today as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So the first thing we're going to talk about is additive inverses. An additive inverse is when the sum of a positive and a negative number equals 0. So an example would be 1 and -1. If I add those two numbers together, I'm going to get 0. 8 and -8. 5, -5. 2.5, -2.5. All of those are additive inverses, meaning I put them together, I add them together, and I get a sum of 0. So do you think that 3 and -3.5, would those be additive inverses? 3 and -3.5. Yes, no. 3, -3.5. Would those two numbers equal 0 if I added them together? Three plus -3.5. Why not, Yariel? Why would those not equal 0? Why would these two not equal 0? Okay, because of this extra little piece here. You see how they're not exactly the same with one positive, one negative? We have this extra half tacked on. So if they're not exactly the same, with one being positive, one being negative, it's not going to be an additive inverse. 0 pairs, which you probably saw in the flip book that you got yesterday, are pairs of opposite numbers that add up to 0. So again, 1 and -1 would be 1, 0 pair, okay? Let's take a look at 0 pairs, and I'm going to use some dots to help model this, just so you can see how this works. So I have the problem here, 5 plus -3. So I'm going to grab 5 of my blue dots. And I'm going to grab 3 of my red ones because the red ones represent my negative numbers. And now I can look at this problem through the model, and I can see that I have my 5 positives and my 3 negatives. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark through one of each at a time. So those 2 pair up, those 2 pair up, and those 2 pair up. So how many 0 pairs do I have in this first example? 5 plus -3. How many 0 pairs are there? Right, there's 3 because I marked through all 3 of my negatives and 3 of my positives. So I have 3 0 pairs. And how many do I have left? What do I have left? I have 2. Are they positive or negative? Right, so 5 plus -3 is going to equal a +2. And you can see that in the model. Here is what I have left, 2 positives. Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. 4 plus -6. So let me do my +4. And let me do my -6. All right, before I mark through anything, how many 0 pairs do I have, or do you think I have? Okay, Yariel says I have 4. Yaneli says 4. All right, let me see here. So I mark through those, 3, and 4, right. Okay, so we had 4 0 pairs. What do I have left over? Monica, why is it -2? Okay, because the red ones are negative. What do you notice about these 2 problems? On this one, we ended up with a +2. This one, we ended up with a -2. What do you notice about those 2 problems? Okay. There's a smaller amount of positive than negative on the second one, and the first one has more positive. Okay. What does that mean for our answer? Or I guess let me ask it this way. Since there was a smaller amount of positive than negative on this second one, what happened to our answer? What do you mean it changed? Okay, so here's what I'm trying to get you to notice. The REL was halfway there to what I wanted you to notice. On this second problem, the negative number is bigger. So our answer was what? Okay, it was negative, right? On this first one, our positive number in the addition equation was bigger, so our answer was right, it was a positive 2, okay? So what I want you to notice as you're working through addition problems that have positive and negative numbers, whichever is the biggest, either the positive number or the negative number, that is going to be the sign that you use in the answer. So if the positive number is bigger, your answer is going to be positive. If the negative number is bigger, then your answer is going to be negative. Okay. What about this third one? What do you predict the answer will be for this third problem? Okay, Monica says 0. Let me get out my dots here. And let's see, positive 2, negative 2. Yariel says 0 also. So I have 1 0 pair, I have 2 0 pairs. Do I have anything left over for either side? Right, there are no leftovers. So this is 2 0 pairs. And what do we call 2 and negative 2? What is that definition we learned at the very beginning? Additive inverses, okay? So 2 and negative 2 are additive inverses because when we add them together, they equal 0. All right, so that is addition equations with integers, so whole numbers, nice and easy to work through. Now let's look at rational numbers, okay? So rational numbers are a little trickier to use, or a little trickier, just because they involve fractions or decimals. And before we can do addition and subtraction with them, we need to find a common denominator. So we are going to find a common denominator first, before we do anything else. Okay. So let's take a look at this first one. 3 2/5 plus negative 1 1/15. So I can't just add these together because 5 and 15 are not the same number. So the first thing I want to do, just to make it a little easier for me, is I'm going to change these into mixed or to improper fractions. They're already mixed numbers. So 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 gives me 17 fifths, plus, and we know this is going to be a negative, 15 times 1 is 15, plus 1 is 16 fifteenths. So we have 17 fifths plus negative 16 fifteenths. If I look just at 5 and 15, what is a common denominator that I can use for those two numbers? 15. So when we're looking at common denominators, we're looking at the least common multiple, okay? So the least common multiple that they have is 15, okay? So 5 times what will get me 15? If I want to change 5 to 15, what am I multiplying by? 3. So if I multiply the denominator by 3, I have to multiply the numerator by 3, and that is going to give me 51. So I have 51 fifteenths plus, and I don't have to do anything to this because it's already in fifteenths. All right, so now I can add. And when we add fractions, the denominator stays the same. And I add my numerators. So 51 plus a negative 16 is what? 51 plus negative 16. $51 plus negative 16. $35. Okay. And if I simplify this down, I would ask myself, how many times does 15 go into 35? And I know that's going to be 2. And it's going to leave me 5 fifteenths. And 5 fifteenths, if I simplify that, would be 1, not 1/2, 1/3. So 2 and 1/3 is the answer to this problem right here. Any questions about how I got my improper fraction on this one and on this one? Okay. Any questions about how I found the least common denominator? Okay. So if I were to write 5 and 15 here, okay, and if I were to go through all of the multiples of 15, so 5 times 1 is 5, times 2 is 10, 3 is 15, and so on and so forth, okay? And then I do the same thing here, 15, 30, 45. If I go through the numbers, I can see that the first one they have in common, Yariel, is 15. And so that's how I know it's the denominator I need to use. Would other ones work? Yes, but we always go with the least common one, okay? All right, let's try this one. 2 plus 3 and, or 2 plus negative 3 1/3. All right, so the first step, we're going to change these to a common form. Since this one is a fraction and this one's not, I'm going to change 2 into a fraction. So 2 as a fraction would be 2 over what number? What would my denominator be? Two over 1 plus negative 3 1/3. Okay. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't change this into an improper fraction. All right, so 3 times negative 3 would be negative 9, negative 10/3. All right, so looking at my denominators, what is going to be the denominator, the common denominator I need to use? All right. So we know this is going to stay the same. To change 1 to thirds, what do I multiply by? 3. So I have to multiply the numerator by 3, so that gives me 6/3. And now we can add. So our denominator stays the same. 6 plus negative 10 equals what? Six plus negative 10 gives me what answer? Let's check the sign on that. Negative 10 and 6. Is it going to be a positive answer or a negative answer? Right, negative 4. Remember, whichever one is bigger, we use that sign. So negative 10, or 10 is bigger than 6, so we are going to have a negative answer. And negative 4/3 simplified would be what mixed number? Negative 1 and 1/3. Any questions about that one? Okay. All right, last one. So this one's a little bit different because we have a decimal here and a fraction. So there's two ways we could go about this. We could change negative 2.5 to a fraction, or we could change negative 3 2/5 to a decimal. So I'm going to do the decimal just because I like working with decimals a little bit better. So we know negative 2.5 is going to stay the same. What is negative 3 2/5 as a decimal? What would that be? Negative 3 point what? 2/5 as a decimal is what? So 2 divided by 5 would give me point. All right. I don't know if it's lagging. So negative 3.4. All right, so one thing I want you to notice is that both of these numbers, excuse me, are negatives. Since they're both negative, I automatically know my answer is going to be negative. So I don't need to worry about which one's bigger or smaller. So I'm just going to add my numbers together. 2.5 and 3.4. I know my answer is going to be negative because both of my add-ins are negative. 5 plus 4 is 9. 2 plus 3 is 5. So my answer is negative 5.9. Any questions about that one? Oh, good morning, Jada. All right, let's talk about your assignment today. So your assignment today is a little bit different. You are actually going to have your own personal Jamboard to work on. There are 2 slides for you to complete. Anywhere it says answer here, you are either going to use the pen tool to write in your answer, or you can drop a text box in there and type it. The number line, you actually need to use the pen tool to model model this problem, 8 plus negative 8 equals 0 on the number line. For this one right here, you are going to look at the different expressions, and you are going to, if you think 4 plus negative 1 is a positive answer, you would type under sum is positive 4 plus negative 1 for every single one of these. Choose if it's going to be a positive, a negative, or a 0 answer, and then answer these 3 questions. Before I let you work on that, I just want to show you what it will look like whenever you try to open this assignment. All right, so operations with rational numbers is the name of it. It tells you here, when you open the Jamboard below, click on the blue title in the window, okay? So you click here, and it's going to look like this on your screen. But if you click operations with rational numbers, it will open up a copy of the Jamboard for you. Once you are done, on this screen, there will be a submit button on the right side, and that is how you submit the assignment. So it's not back here on the Canvas page. It is going to be right here on this screen, okay? Any questions about that?